In a world shrouded in the mists of uncertainty, every now and then a voice rises that sounds like thunder in the silence. A voice that challenges convention, shakes the foundations of our beliefs, and invites us to look beyond the veil of our limited perceptions. Imagine a spiritual rebel, a mystic who dances on the razor's edge between scandal and enlightenment. A man who, with an enigmatic smile, dared to defy every dogma, every tradition, pushing us to question not only the world around us, but above all, ourselves. This is the story of a divine provocateur, a master who chose to teach not through contemplative stillness, but through the storm of controversy. A being who turned spirituality into a celebration, meditation into an ecstatic dance, and the search for truth into a bold and uncompromising adventure. Prepare for a journey that will challenge your every belief, that will make you laugh and tremble, that will push you to the edge of the abyss, only to show you that you can fly. This is the story of a man who has been called by many names: guru, charlatan, mystic, public menace, but who, in the end, was simply and irreducibly himself. Welcome to the kaleidoscopic world of Osho, where reality bends, consciousness expands, and every moment is an opportunity to awaken to the ultimate truth of existence. This is the story of a spiritual revolution that continues to echo through time. This is the story of Osho. Chandra Mohan Jain, known as Osho, was born on December 11, 1931, in Kuchwada, a village in the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. His parents, Babulal and Saraswati Jain, entrusted him to his maternal grandparents until the age of 7, as they had more time to care for him. This period had a profound influence on his growth and development. Chandra's grandmother was a central figure in the village, known for her kindness and her deep connection to tradition and spirituality. Every morning at dawn, she would gently wake the young Chandra, and together they would walk through the fields where the birds' songs and the scent of flowers filled the fresh morning air. It was there, under the vast and radiant sky, that his grandmother taught him to meditate, to find silence within himself, and to feel the harmony of the universe. Seated beneath a large banyan tree, she would tell Chandra stories of sages and mystics, tales of spiritual freedom and inner search. Each story was a seed planted in the boy's heart, a seed that would later bloom into his teachings and reflections. She never imposed dogmas, but encouraged him to explore and find his own truths. "Listen to your heart, Chandra," she would say, "for there you will find all the answers." The days passed in a quiet routine of discoveries and learning. His grandmother taught him not only meditation, but also the value of compassion and freedom. She showed him how every small act of kindness could transform the world around him, and how true wisdom was born from direct experience and contemplation. Those years spent with his grandmother were like a safe haven for Chandra, a time when his spirit could grow freely, without constraints. When he eventually had to leave the village to continue his studies, he carried with him not only the memories of those serene days, but also the deep and loving teachings of his grandmother. Those lessons, imparted with so much love and patience, would become the foundation of his philosophy and would go on to influence millions of people around the world. Thus, in the quiet and loving figure of his grandmother, Osho found the first and most important teacher of his life. A guide who, without even realizing it, had begun shaping the mind of a future thinker and spiritual guide. In the years following his childhood in the peaceful village of Kuchwada, Chandra embarked on a journey that would take him far from the green fields and the banyan tree stories of his maternal grandmother. It was a journey toward knowledge and discovery, one that led him into the austere and crowded lecture halls of Indian universities. In 1951, at the age of 20, Chandra enrolled at Hitkarini College in Jabalpur. The city, with its bustle and liveliness, represented a world completely different from the serenity of his native village. The streets were alive with street vendors, busy students, and the constant hum of urban life. Chandra, with his sharp mind and insatiable curiosity, immersed himself in this new environment with enthusiasm. During his university years, he quickly distinguished himself for his intellectual brilliance and his ability to think critically. He was a magnetic young man who captured the attention of both professors and fellow students with sharp arguments and a natural eloquence. His favorite subjects were philosophy and psychology, disciplines he found fascinating and that stimulated his inquisitive spirit. But Chandra was not just a diligent student. He was also a rebel, a young man who openly challenged authority and social conventions. His radical ideas and refusal to blindly accept dogma often brought him into conflict with his teachers and peers. However, these clashes did not discourage him. On the contrary, they fueled his passion for truth and his determination to explore new frontiers of thought. Chandra completed his degree in philosophy in 1955, but his thirst for knowledge remained unquenched. He continued his studies at Sagar University, where he earned a master's degree in philosophy. During this time, he continued to challenge academic norms, earning a reputation as an independent and provocative thinker. His thesis, which explored complex themes of existence and consciousness, reflected the depth of his thinking and his ability to go beyond the surface of philosophical questions. It was during these years that he began to give public talks, attracting more and more people with his passionate speeches and innovative visions. His words were like sparks that ignited the hearts and minds of his listeners, inviting them to see the world through a new and provocative lens. In 1968, Chandra was invited to deliver a series of talks on the theme of love at the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan Auditorium. Standing before an eager crowd, he proclaimed that sexual energy, if not repressed, could be transformed into love and meditation. In his speech, he stated that sexual energy is the most powerful force we possess. To repress it would be to deny our very essence. Instead, he emphasized the need to transform it into love and meditation, declaring that it would ultimately lead us to the superconscious. These words sparked immediate outrage. The reactions were intense. Many religious and conservative leaders were shocked. The series of talks was abruptly cancelled, but Chandra did not stop. He continued speaking to an ever-growing audience, and those talks were later published under the title From Sex to Superconsciousness. 2 years later, in 1970, Chandra tackled another controversial subject, socialism. In a series of talks titled Beware of Socialism, he harshly criticized the political system, provoking strong reactions from Gandhians and communists alike. He claimed that socialism could not be imposed on a society that had not yet fully developed capitalism, and that forcing it would inevitably lead to failure. These statements sparked a wave of controversy. On one hand, socialism supporters condemned him. On the other, some began to see in him a voice of truth, daring to challenge the ideologies of the time. Chandra did not spare criticism even for the most revered leaders. During his talks, he often criticized Gandhism, calling it a failed philosophy. He said that Gandhism was an ideology unfit for the modern world, one that failed to understand the true needs of humanity. The reactions were swift and intense. Many walked out of his talks, but at the same time he gained a group of followers who appreciated his honesty and his courage to speak against the current. Among his most controversial talks was the one on the madness of organized religion. Like his equally great predecessor Krishnamurti, Chandra sharply criticized institutionalized religions, asserting that true religion cannot be contained within rigid structures. He declared that authentic religion is a personal and intimate experience. Religious institutions, he said, are full of hypocrisy and cannot contain the true essence of spirituality. This talk triggered strong reactions from religious leaders and devout believers. His words were seen as a threat to established doctrines, but at the same time, many began to see in him a spiritual liberator. Perhaps the most scandalous talk of all was on sexual freedom. He argued that sexual repression is damaging and that sexual freedom is essential for spiritual growth. Chandra affirmed that sexual repression destroys the soul. He claimed that only through sexual freedom could one attain true spiritual evolution. This talk, delivered in a conservative context, sparked a wave of criticism and scandal. However, it also attracted many young people in search of a more modern and open vision of spirituality. Chandra never shied away from expressing his views, even when they clashed with popular beliefs. His words provoked strong reactions, but also admiration and devotion. As he delved deeper into the academic and philosophical world, Chandra maintained a connection to the spirituality and meditation he had learned from his grandmother. His university experiences, combined with the teachings of his childhood, formed a rich and complex fabric that would become the foundation of his future teachings. These university years, marked by intellectual challenges and personal discovery, were a crucial period for Chandra. In them, the first contours began to emerge of the revolutionary thinker the world would come to know as Osho, a man destined to profoundly influence contemporary spiritual and philosophical thought. Chandra studied many Western and Eastern philosophical figures, such as Buddha, Gandhi, Nietzsche, and Gurdjieff. He was not attached to any specific religious or philosophical doctrine. Instead, he explored a wide range of spiritual texts and practices, ranging from Zen Buddhism and Hinduism to Sufism and Western philosophy. Meditation was central to his life from an early age. He described his experience of enlightenment at the age of 21, an event that marked a turning point in his spiritual journey and defined his future approach to teaching and spiritual life. On the night of March 21st, 1953, in the deep stillness of Jabalpur, India, a young man named Chandra Mohan Jain sat beneath a banyan tree. This young man, whom the world would later know as Osho, was on the verge of an event that would radically transform his existence. Chandra had always felt a deep dissatisfaction with the superficiality of everyday life. Since childhood, he had been a relentless seeker of truth, questioning teachers, reading sacred texts, and immersing himself in various spiritual practices. That night, he felt the final answer was near. That night I was determined to either find the truth or die trying. I sat under the banyan tree, closed my eyes, and let go of every thought. I felt an energy growing within me, a stillness as deep as the eye of a cyclone. As Chandra sank deeper into meditation, he perceived a profound shift. The energy within him became more and more intense until suddenly he was overwhelmed by an inner light. A burst of light and awareness enveloped him. In that moment, Chandra realized he was one with the universe. Every boundary between himself and the world dissolved, and he felt a divine presence permeate his entire being. Never had I experienced anything so real. It was as if ordinary reality paled in comparison. Everything was alive, vibrating with divine energy. In that instant, I became everything and nothing all at once. Chandra had finally found what he had been seeking his entire life: supreme awareness, enlightenment. This moment marked the beginning of his path as a spiritual teacher, a path that would inspire millions around the globe. When I opened my eyes, the world had changed. Everything held a new meaning, a new depth. Every leaf, every flower, every star shone with a new and wondrous light. I returned to the world, but I was no longer the same. My mind was clearer than ever before, and my heart was filled with immeasurable joy. I had found the truth, and with it, eternal peace. Chandra recounted that after that night, every aspect of life seemed bathed in a divine light. Even the most ordinary things appeared full of meaning and beauty. This experience of enlightenment was not just a personal event, but the beginning of a global mission. He began to share his wisdom and experiences, attracting followers from all corners of the world. His words, charged with truth and depth, resonated with people seeking a deeper understanding of life. After completing his master's degree, Chandra became a professor of philosophy. He began his academic career at Jabalpur University and later worked at Sagar University. This period was significant in solidifying his ability to formulate and discuss complex philosophical ideas. In his role as an educator, Chandra did not follow traditional teaching methods. Instead, he encouraged debate, open discussion, and personal inquiry among his students. This unorthodox approach wasn't always well received in the traditional academic setting, but it attracted many young thinkers and spiritual seekers. By the late 1960s, Chandra decided to leave the academic environment altogether to devote himself fully to spiritual guidance. This transition marked the beginning of a movement that would later become known as the Rajneesh movement. Chandra began gaining recognition as a spiritual teacher. At first, few knew of this young man who spoke of freedom, awareness, and love. But Chandra had a broader vision. He firmly believed the world needed to witness the spiritual awakening he was attempting to spark. In 1966, he changed his name to Rajneesh. Over time, he adopted various other titles, including Acharya Rajneesh and Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, before finally adopting the name Osho in 1989. To bring his vision to life, he adopted a bold strategy. He sent his disciples around the world dressed in orange, a color chosen not by chance, but for its deep symbolic meaning. In India, orange is the color of renunciation, worn by sannyasins, ascetics who have given up material possessions to dedicate themselves entirely to the spiritual path. But Rajneesh's followers were not traditional ascetics. Around their necks they wore a mala, a necklace of 108 beads, traditionally used for prayer and meditation. Each bead was passed between the fingers during the recitation of a mantra, an act of concentration and devotion. At the center of this mala was a photograph of their master, Rajneesh. It was a tangible symbol of their spiritual connection with him and a way to carry his presence with them wherever they went. Thus, his disciples spread across the world, carrying with them the image of their guru and the message of a new spirituality that united meditation with the celebration of life. It was a revolutionary move, and in a short time, people from all over the globe began to take interest in this Indian master with a serene face and eyes full of mystery. In 1974, Rajneesh established his ashram in Pune, a quiet city in the Indian state of Maharashtra. The ashram quickly became a magnet for thousands of people searching for something more in life. Unlike many other gurus, Rajneesh did not teach renunciation of the world, but rather the embrace of life in all its forms. He promoted dynamic meditation, a practice that combined intense breathing, vigorous physical movements, and a final phase of deep silence. It was a practice that shook people to their core, freeing them from stored tensions and inner repressions. The ashram also became known for its psychological therapies, influenced by Western psychology, which were used to break through the inner barriers of disciples and prepare them for meditation. Rajneesh integrated elements of Western psychology with Eastern spiritual practices, creating a method capable of addressing the neuroses and insecurities typical of modern society. He believed that before one could meditate effectively, it was essential to release repressed emotions and accumulated tension. These psychological techniques helped express those emotions cathartically, creating a freer and more open mental space. The atmosphere was vibrant, full of energy, a fusion of East and West, of ancient spiritual traditions and modern psychological techniques. However, as the commune grew, so did the criticism. Rajneesh's liberal practices, including an open view on sexuality, began to draw attention from the media and authorities. Religious and political leaders in India started to see him as a threat to traditional morality and social stability. By the early 1980s, the legal and political pressure in India became unbearable. Rajneesh decided to leave the country. In 1981, accompanied by a group of devoted disciples, he moved to the United States, where they purchased a 64,000-acre ranch in Oregon. Here, in the heart of the desert, he dreamed of building a utopian commune, a place where his teachings could come to life without the constraints of the old world. Rajneeshpuram, as it was called, grew quickly. The barren land was transformed into a thriving city with thousands of inhabitants, a network of roads, modern buildings, an airstrip, and even an artificial lake. Every day, residents engaged in spiritual practices, community building, and economic self-sufficiency. It was an entirely new city, built from scratch, with the ideal of communal living based on love, meditation, and celebration. News of this extraordinary project spread rapidly, drawing people from every corner of the planet. Men and women from all walks of life flocked to Rajneeshpuram, drawn by the promise of a life founded on love, meditation, and personal freedom. Artists, professionals, students, and spiritual seekers joined this collective adventure, eager to embrace a new way of living. Every day in the community was a vibrant experience. Rajneeshpuram was not just a physical place, it was a symbol of hope and renewal. The residents of the commune worked together to build a self-sufficient society, sharing resources and responsibilities. The community became a refuge for those seeking an alternative to conventional life. Rajneesh was initiating an ever-growing number of people from around the world. Many of them reported experiencing states of ecstasy or extraordinary mystical phenomena, often described as manifestations of deep inner release or intense spiritual connection. Critics spoke of mere suggestion, but in any case, this man left a lasting impression, and his fame, along with that of his community, continued to grow. But as often happens with utopian dreams, Rajneeshpuram was not immune to conflict. The presence of such a large and powerful community in the heart of Oregon soon provoked hostility from local residents and state authorities. Tensions escalated, culminating in a series of legal battles and cultural clashes. 3 years after his arrival, in October 1984, Rajneesh entered a period of silence that would last approximately 13 months, until November 1985. During this time, the Guru ceased his daily public discourses, which had until then been a central feature of his teachings. This silence did not mean a complete withdrawal from public life. Rajneesh continued to meet with his disciples and communicated through gestures and written notes. His personal secretary read his messages aloud to the community and to the press. The context of this decision is crucial. At that time, the Rajneeshpuram commune was facing increasing pressure from local and federal authorities, in addition to internal disputes and growing controversies. His silence coincided with a period of intense political and legal activity within the commune. This period remains one of the most enigmatic and debated episodes in the history of the Rajneesh movement, interpreted differently by followers and critics alike. The fall of Rajneeshpuram and the return to India was a day like any other in Rajneeshpuram, the thriving commune nestled in the Oregon desert, when suddenly the shadows of suspicion began to stretch over the utopian city. Rajneesh's dream of building a community based on love, meditation, and the celebration of life began to crumble, not so much because of external threats, but due to internal tensions and darker dynamics. In 1984, the commune was shaken by a scandal that would mark a point of no return in its history. Some members of the community, under the leadership of Ma Anand Sheela, Rajneesh's personal secretary and one of his closest aides, were involved in a bioterrorist attack. In a desperate attempt to influence local elections, salmonella bacteria were released into the salad bars of restaurants in the nearby town of the Dalles, poisoning hundreds of people. This incident, which became one of the largest bioterrorist attacks ever on American soil, drew the attention of federal authorities and marked the beginning of the end for the commune. But the bioterrorist attack was not the only scandal to shake the community. Shortly after the incident, Ma Anand Sheela, the woman who had administered the commune with an iron grip for years, suddenly fled Rajneeshpuram, taking with her a substantial amount of money. Reports spoke of millions of dollars taken from the commune's funds, money collected through the donations of Rajneesh's followers. Sheela's escape left the community in a state of shock and disorientation. Those who had placed their trust in her suddenly felt betrayed and abandoned. Rajneesh, who until then had remained silent, re-emerged to confront the situation. In a series of discourses, he spoke openly about the betrayal and the dynamics that had led to the downfall of Rajneeshpuram. But rather than focusing solely on condemning Sheela's actions, he used the entire episode as a lesson for his disciples. He explained that, despite spiritual practice and meditation, the human ego is always lurking, ready to resurface and take control of our actions if we are not completely aware. He emphasized how even in an apparently spiritual context, the forces of ego can be powerful and destructive. Greed, the thirst for power, fear, and the illusion of control can take over and distort even the most well-intentioned efforts. He told his followers that true spiritual realization is not merely about meditating or following a teacher. It requires constant vigilance against the traps of the ego. Until one reaches deep awareness and real integration with the inner self, the ego will continue to rule even in the most sacred situations. "Look at what happened here," Rajneesh told his followers. "We built a city, a dream of harmony and love, and yet it was the ego, the lust for power, that destroyed everything. We cannot simply get rid of the ego. We must understand it, observe it, be aware of it. Only then can we transcend it." Osho used Sheela's betrayal and the tragic events of Rajneeshpuram to teach that the path to enlightenment is full of pitfalls, and that every step must be taken with awareness and care. Sheela's betrayal and escape were not seen by him simply as a tragedy, but as an opportunity for deeper reflection on human nature. The story of Rajneeshpuram and the lesson about ego became one of Osho's most profound teachings, a warning for all who seek spiritual truth. Realization is not a destination, but a continuous process, and the ego, if not understood and transcended, can destroy even the most beautiful dreams. Despite his wise words, the situation in Rajneeshpuram continued to deteriorate. Federal investigations intensified, and in 1985, Rajneesh was arrested on charges of immigration fraud. After a period of detention, he agreed to leave the United States as part of a plea bargain. He left Rajneeshpuram and began a long pilgrimage through various countries, searching for a place to settle, but was rejected by many governments. This refusal to grant asylum to Rajneesh was significantly influenced by strong pressure from the US government. After his expulsion from the United States in 1985, Rajneesh sought asylum in various countries, but encountered considerable difficulties.
According to testimonies, including that of Majid Andrea Valcarenghi in his book Operazione Socrate, the American government orchestrated a smear campaign against Rajneesh, portraying him as a terrorist and a criminal, which led to strong resistance from other countries in accepting him.
In one particular case, the then president of Uruguay, who greatly admired Rajneesh and was willing to welcome him into the country, was forced to back down after the United States threatened to revoke a critical loan to the Uruguayan government. Similarly, in Italy, attempts to obtain a visa for Rajneesh were blocked due to diplomatic pressure from the US. He was even interviewed at the time by the famous Italian journalist Enzo Biaggi. Despite public campaigns and the support of political figures like Marco Pannella, the Italian government, under US influence, continued to obstruct the situation. These events suggest that the hostility toward Rajneesh was not merely the result of local controversies or legal issues, but rather the product of a broader strategy by the US government to isolate and discredit a figure who challenged the social and political norms of the time. After Rajneeshpuram was abandoned, it became a symbol of how even the grandest dreams can collapse under the weight of human ambition. Following the legal turmoil and the controversies in Oregon, Rajneesh returned to India in 1985, resettling once again in Pune, where he would spend the final years of his extraordinary life. There, he rebuilt his ashram, which resumed its activities and once again attracted many visitors and disciples, turning it into an internationally renowned center for meditation and teaching. This period marked a return to his origins, as Osho continued to develop and disseminate his teachings until his death. In his final years, his teachings increasingly focused on the theme of awakening, a call to live with awareness and presence in the world. Today, he is known universally as Osho, a name he adopted in January 1989, just 1 year before his death. The choice of the name Osho, which means oceanic, was meant to express a broader and more inclusive vision of spirituality, distancing himself from the title Bhagwan, which for many carried connotations of divinity that he no longer wished to evoke. On January 19, 1990, Osho left his body. Some of his close followers, including Majid Valcarenghi, claim that Osho was poisoned with thallium, a heavy metal, during his time in detention. In his book, Valcarenghi argues that Osho was poisoned by religious fundamentalists and that US authorities were involved. Osho's symptoms after his detention included loss of appetite, persistent nausea, and other signs of declining health, symptoms that some attributed to poisoning. Dr. John Wally, Osho's personal physician, stated that Osho exhibited signs of thallium poisoning, a heavy metal that could have caused his health to deteriorate. During a visit to London in 1987, the doctor brought blood and urine samples for analysis. suggesting that the poisoning had occurred during Osho's detention in Oklahoma. Osho himself, in a press conference recorded shortly before his death, claimed he had been poisoned with a slow-releasing substance. He attributed the act to fundamentalist Christian groups within the US government, including President Reagan. This declaration further fueled conspiracy theories surrounding his death. The US government has consistently denied the accusations, stating there was no evidence against Osho and describing the claims as unfounded, part of a narrative constructed by his followers. But as many of his disciples pointed out, even if they were guilty, would they ever admit it? Despite these official denials, suspicions of a conspiracy continued to persist among his supporters, fueled by a long string of controversial events linked to his expulsion from the United States and the handling of his commune in Oregon. After his death, the Pune ashram was renamed the Osho International Meditation Resort and continued to draw thousands of spiritual seekers from around the world. Osho left behind a legacy of teachings that combined spiritual depth, irony, and a vision of life that continues to inspire millions of people. The story of Osho is a testament to the power of spiritual vision and to the fragility of utopian dreams. His life, marked by extraordinary success and deep controversy, remains an example of how a human being can strive to transcend the limits of existence, even at the cost of challenging the conventions of the world.
Osho left an indelible mark on the spiritual world, a controversial figure who challenged convention and urged people to explore their inner depths. But what does it truly mean to be free? Osho invited each of us to begin our own journey to discover the truth within. Even after his death, his words continue to echo through generations. His communities, born from his teachings, thrive all over the world, creating spaces for meditation, love, and personal freedom. But the true legacy of Osho isn't just found in his discourses or his writings. It's found in the transformation he inspired. Every individual who embraces his philosophy contributes to a more conscious and open world. In an age where the world seems increasingly divided, his words remind us that true freedom comes from within. Osho is not just a master of the past, he is a guide for the present and the future. The search for truth is a never-ending journey, and for those ready to walk it, Osho remains a light shining in the dark. Thank you from the heart for joining me on this journey into the world of Osho. If the words and ideas of this great master have touched or inspired you, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every gesture of yours is a seed we plant together, helping a community of awareness and love to blossom. Share this video with friends and family so they too may discover the beauty of this extraordinary master's message. Your presence here is a precious gift. Thank you again for your support. Wishing you a good life, and see you in the next video.